When COVID-19 hit the shores of Aotearoa and as fear started to take hold across the country, iwi and Māori communities mobilised. Relationships that have been forged across generations were able to move and activate resource with urgency. A realisation that iwi and Māori had the capability to move together to ensure communities were well equipped to provide for their whānau, hapori, hapu and iwi. This 4-part docu-series will cover what happened across the mid-central region during the COVID-19 lockdown period. We will hear stories from whānau members, kaimahi, iwi leaders and government agencies that highlight how the region flourished during this time.
Non-essential businesses in New Zealand must now close. All bars, restaurants, cafes, cinemas, pools, museums, libraries, playgrounds, any other place where the public congregate must close their face-to-face function.
When we moved into the lockdown phase, everything just happened so quickly. It was actually quite massive.
It was something that we'd never ever seen before in our lifetime.
It wasn't time to really think. We had 24 hours to mobilise, but naturally as Māori, that's something that we can do very quickly and very effectively.
Watching well, more quick. Found it to be very difficult being alone in that time.
We put in place a system to deliver out of Auckland as our main port essential equipment, for the want of a better way to put it, to our poorer communities up and down the country.
I certainly realised how unprepared we were for a pandemic, and from a Māori organisation's perspective and seeing Māori throughout the motu, how we can react to protect our people and protect our communities was amazing to watch how our families stood up. Even our whānau that normally would consider themselves as people that are not really needed in the community were actually the ones that stood up.
As an iwi, we saw a responsibility for us to help our people. We knew that it was going to be a tough times ahead. And I then said that we need to also look after our people out through Te Reo, commonly known as the Valley, and over towards Ohinipuiawe. We said we would look after all of our people in the northern region of Ngāti Raukawa, for Whirring, Kauwhata, for the Valley, through Halkim, Te Reo, and over in Bulls, Ohinipuiawe.
The experience of lockdown particularly was a time for reflection, and it brought forward whakaaro that you might often put on the back burner, and it made you think about the things that were really important.
Yeah, broccoli.
Lockdown also taught my family the true difference between a need and a want. We found out that no, we don't actually need to be going buying takeaway every night. We actually can cook and cook quite mean. We found out that, you know what, we don't have to go to these movie theatres or these adventure parks or stuff like that that cost an arm and a leg to go to. You know, you can make these basic games at home with just a stick and a bit of know-how and a bit of imagination. Your children, you'll find it, they'll have loads more fun with this simple game than taking them off to these places that pretty much would make you broke.
Every day was a different day, every hour was a different hour. When we went into lockdown, there was this peace, I guess. Yeah, peace. There was like, you know, there was no people around, there was no traffic around. You actually got the opportunity to hear the birds singing.
I definitely learnt about the different heartbeats of the different hapu and how we engage with that.
Before we were pretty stuck in our procedures and processes on how we deliver our service, but now being in a pandemic and being at lockdown level, it's made us have to use our initiative a lot more on how the way we deliver our service.
COVID has actually united us more, but our natural network certainly kicked in.
But I think it was a very kind of aha moment for government departments to realise how quickly we could mobilise and interact with our communities.
During the distribution, we went back to our natural reality as Māori to our own people and also to our own tangata whāora. It just felt natural. Hei whakaora, tangata, hei whakaora, TV.
Our people stood up and at great risk to themselves, their own whānaus, came together to work together.
We just did what was best for our whānau. I mean, it was all common sense stuff, basically. We had farmers coming in and dropping sheep off in the first 2 weeks because we had no access from anybody, so we started providing for ourselves.
There was a lot happening in many different spaces in the community, but we tried to bring together the key players, which we successfully did. And together we became a powerful voice and a powerful collective for advocating for what our community needed during the various levels.
The mobilisation of that inside of 10 days was a remarkable event.
During the pandemic, life as we knew it changed. We forged our way to a new normal. Iwi and Māori leadership were collected drivers of a shared aspiration to ensure our community, while forced to isolate, continued to be connected. Iwi and Māori fully realised their agility and were able to harness new ways to connect to their whānau, hapori, hapu and iwi.
The need in our community was a lot bigger than what I thought. Thankfully, with the mahi that all of us done together with the Kapapa Māori services, we were able to address that.
Being in a hotel, one bedroom hotel here is confined, wouldn't let it go anywhere. So it's difficult to beat the temptation to go back to old ways, addiction, that pathway, the old monkey on the back. It's tempting. It was hard times there. Found I didn't really want to go back to that sort of stuff to seek comfort anymore, because it never has helped.
Our community really did step up to see the whānau through in this time.
We went beyond our boundaries, but that's where the other people were that needed the help. We got in touch with organisations that we've never been in touch with before. There were the Tongan community, Samoan community. We ended up having a Tongan and a Samoan working with us doing the kai boxes, and that's how we got it out there.
They realised that Māori are not just about Māori, that Māori are about the community. We had Pākehā family that we were giving parcels to. They were just breaking down and crying because they were saying that to us. I've never felt this before. Are you sure? So their view on Māori is just completely flipped and changed.
A lot of kindness happened around whānau as well, and it didn't matter what colour of your skin was, where you were from, what your background is. So I found kindness was huge in that aspect. We're there at any time, at any moment, it doesn't matter what kind of situation we're in, that our organisations will just get up and they'll do it.
The strength of a bicultural lens and the leadership principles, rangatiratanga, whanaungatanga, kotahitanga, just really provided a levelling and a permission for just the diversity of our community to engage, to make a contribution. And very proud of what the community achieved, the City of Palmerston North achieved, and especially our wider iwi and Māori whānau. And it just shows the value of a te ao Māori leaders.
It wasn't hard for us to come together and trust one another and just get on with the doing. And that stands us in really good stead.
Fortunate being that iwi here, we have Kia Ora FM 89.8. That literally was the lifeline for many of our Māori community during COVID. It was the station that they would tune into to listen about the various levels, whether you could go and see whānau up the hospital, when you could go see them, how many could go. It was through that medium and our social media platforms of Kia Ora FM that we promoted the rules around tangihanga, unveilings and those kinds of things.
It really highlighted that often whānau live and struggle regardless of being locked down. So it's no different for a lot of Māori to live a life of lockdownness. Whānau got to do the simple goals like eating well, teaching their young toddlers and letting them partake in cooking a meal so that they were more open to eating vegetables and what was on the plate because they had an input into cooking that kai. And those humble kind of like small goals, whānau really focused on. Homeschooling.
Being able to sit and retrain my children through certain things and behaviours that they've learnt was really, really beautiful for me. Teaching them how they do actually engage with other people. Children don't really learn these sorts of things in school. Being able to have them at home for that set time to get through all of those sorts of teachings that I know they weren't getting was absolutely beautiful for me.
That's all learning, and so they felt like they had their own mana motuhake to decide, this is how my child's going to learn in this space. And yes, the teacher's saying that, but actually this is what's working for our whānau unit.
Our communities became active, and active straight away. They were quick in their responses, and they were the best ones to provide those responses, not agencies. Agencies are really important to support those responses. So I think we learned that communities and the organisations that sit in those communities and that respond to those communities on a day-to-day basis are the ones to be able to do that far more effectively and far more efficiently.
Iwi leading in Porowhenua, and we set up a template where every day we disseminated information that went out to our workforces as well as our whānau that we were serving through the COVID-19. What that looked like is we were able to give them access to direct numbers if they're needing wind support, firewood, kaumātua support, and etc.
Iwi Māori, Te Tihi, and other providers in our community came together to look at how we could contribute to those whānau who were very affected, were disconnected from services and provision that might otherwise be available when we went in that lockdown space.
Our communities are actually really resilient, that given the resource and the support, that they actually led their own solutions to a lot of the issues that arose around COVID. They can actually lead their own solutions to not only the COVID situation, but also a lot of the other community issues that arise for our people.
When the fire hits the fan, you just react how you've been taught to react, or you follow those who've gone there to do what they would have done. And so everybody thought, oh, you've got a job to do here. Me mai te mai. Koina.
The pandemic had a major impact on the nation. And while across much of Aotearoa this created challenges, it also brought about a time to reconnect, reflect and revitalise. In response to the challenges, partnerships between government agencies and iwi and Māori leaders saw a system-level overhaul. The breaking down of entrenched systemic barriers, activating the mobilisation of Māori resources to support whānau, hapu, hāpori and iwi.
The response in the region to COVID was that there seemed to be a lot more acknowledgement and resource for iwi leadership to manifest, for iwi to hold and channel resource towards whānau Māori, but also towards the wider community. And I think we've only just beginning to see the amazing opportunities and contributions iwi can bring to that space.
Definitely that collaborative connection and commitment is universally valuable in creating movement, cohesion and direction together. It's kind of like taking the kupu of mahi tahi and kotahitanga, throwing it together, you know, mahi kotahi, because it was, you know, the constant communication, the reliance and constant connectivity with community as well as providers, and that it was one.
It worked really well because, you know, in real time we could have the conversations that we needed to have, and we could provide the inputs that and the feedback that we needed to provide collectively.
As the treaty partner, that is our role to carry out, and we expect agencies to get in and support us and to reduce the barriers.
It showed the quality of our relationships and connections. It showed the quality of how connected we are and how easy it was for us to pick up and just take our working together to a whole other level.
Being at that table meant that we were all able to contribute in some way. So really our response, I suppose, for that was to resource our communities to enable them to be able to respond.
There's a more coordinated approach to involve iwi and Māori, because we must continue to lead out that space.
We were all focused on what were going to be the outcomes for whānau, how were we going to get the resources to where they needed to be. So I think that was a real example of success around cohesive leadership.
Over the 8 weeks of COVID, we called upon our local community. We had 227 whānau volunteers in the end that we were able to use in 3 different ways. One was our comms team, kept the communications going to our whānau. 2, through our distribution team, and we had to get a team to put all the packs together. And the 3rd, for those to go and deliver. Our message to our people was this, to be strong, to be stout-hearted, helping our people in need at this time.
Some of our community who may or may not have seen us act in a leadership capacity, you know, in a front-footing, out there, galvanising leadership capacity, may have now been able to sit up and take notice of that.
As a Māori warden, as a face of the community that has been around for centuries, whether it be 3 o'clock in the morning patrolling the streets, or whether it be a tangi at the marae, or whether it be just working amongst our rangatahi and our whānau, that at times like this they also have learnt that Māori wardens are just another level or another part of the collective that will be there for our people.
I think that a lot of learning, not only for ourselves as whānau navigators, but for the whānau, there was so much learning in that space, and also reconfirming with themselves that they have strength that they might not have known they had.
I have a huge respect and admiration for our navigators and our team, and how dedicated and patient they were with helping our whānau and our clients through their individual lockdown and COVID experiences, almost putting aside their own whānau and focusing on what was needed.
They continue to reinforce the trust and strength that was already there. But yeah, it's definitely, I think the ability to trust and rely was really built on looking at the distribution centre and the logistics around that, how whānau were able to get access to those kai packs and sanitation packs, really demonstrated how creative and tenacious our iwi and Māori providers are.
I just think non-Māori organisations realise how powerful we can be, and that we have a way of working that showed it worked during that highly stressful, challenging time.
We continue to keep our finger on the pulse. We continue to engage in long-term initiatives and the long-term strategy. This type of virus is not something that's going to go away instantly, and it could be some time until we get to a point where we've obtained a vaccine or we've got a cure. And so we're always mindful that any time, any day, this could come back.
We're resilient, we're hardworking, and we mobilised really fast, right from the get-go.
It didn't matter whether it's an iwi or not. What mattered is that every description of Māori organisation stood up, whether it was church-based, mātā waka, or mana whenua-based. We all pulled our weight together. That was the magic in the moment when everyone else was down, and we stood up. It stood up collectively through every region.
I do believe without those services there would have been a lot of us struggling even deeper. So yeah, Mauri Ora, and thank you so much to the organisations for thinking of us.
As we look forward, it will no longer be acceptable to return to a system that actively worked against our people. The experience throughout COVID-19 lockdown highlighted the beauty and connectedness of our iwi and Māori communities. We will continue to move with agility, to mobilise, to maximise resource, and to adapt to the needs and aspirations of our whānau, hapori, hapu and iwi. This 4-part docu-series covers what happened across the mid-central region during the COVID-19 lockdown period. We heard stories from whānau members, kaimahi, iwi leaders and government agencies that highlighted how the region flourished during this time.
The experience of lockdown was good because it slowed everything up. To be honest, I didn't mind it at all. I didn't mind that lockdown at all. Personally, that is because of what it enabled me to do.
Everyone in Aotearoa was impacted by the virus, but some more than others, and there were communities that were at high risk as a result of that. What we learned is that all communities want to support their members, all of them. And I'm not just talking about iwi and Māori communities, but other communities that are out there also.
Being better in touch with our community, I think, is the key. Prior to COVID, we didn't know who were the right people to talk to in regards to helping us and all that sort of stuff. So we have a map of all that now.
It's been about saying, you know what, if we can get through this the way we did together, none of us are alone. We stand with a group that's connected and therefore strong, and that's the position and the thinking that we take forward.
Our confidence as a people has maybe grown because we could see that we did that and we did it well, which means that we can do more.
We've taken the learnings that we've experienced at level 4, 3 and 2. We've changed the way that we work here now. We have a mixture of staff that will come into the office for say 3 days, have all their hui face to face and meet with their clients face to face, and then the other 2 days they may work at home.
So we've written, for instance, into the individual employment agreements, we've got a clause in there about flexibility, and so that's about recognising that kaimahi are first and foremost members of their own whānau and they have their own responsibilities in that space. Therefore, as an employer, we need to recognise that and be flexible about how they work.
It revolutionised our medical practice. We'd been pushing for a long time in the region to encourage our doctors to move to the likes of virtual and telephone consults, but they were just a bit hesitant to do that, and with COVID there was no choice. We now continue with a mixture of face-to-face and telephone consults. It seems to be working very well. In particular, a lot of patients appreciate the fact now that they can use the portal. They don't have to drive from one side of town over to the other and maybe wait 15 to 20 minutes to see their doctor. They can do it over the telephone, and the doctors have become a lot more comfortable in triaging patients, and if they do need to come in, they will call them to come in.
We've been waiting for that opportunity to advance at a greater rate. We definitely have so much skill and talent in our team, in our kaimahi, that really only has people have only seen the tip of the iceberg. So I always feel like it provides us with a great opportunity to further advance the kaupapa in terms of whānau ora.
Because we're such a naturally resilient people after 180 years of oppression, you know, this was just another one. And so we were agile and able to move, and all we needed really was for the permissive environment to be created so that we did have that freedom to do what we know needed to be done.
It's never been a tiny lens. It's actually more about the way broader opportunity for us to truly take that position as tangata whenua. And so I see this as a vehicle. It may not be the vehicle in 20 years, but right now it is a vehicle that provides us with a position to have greater line of sight to where we're heading.
We've focused on what's important in our communities, and we said actually we don't need to be doing these things which aren't giving our communities a great outcome, but we'll focus on what is giving our communities a great outcome from us. You know, and those changes haven't been easy, especially in a big organisation like police, but we absolutely committed to not going back to business as usual, which is what we were doing prior to COVID.
Nothing's impossible. Barriers are stumbling blocks that we can turn into stepping stones.
I think we did an amazing job for what we did do as a whole, as a collective, and we'll be able to hit the ground, no doubt, way faster and be able to, identify where the priority should be, should we have to tackle something like this again.
Yeah, I'm actually grateful to lockdown for those things. It gave it back when I was fearing that it would take it away. If anything, it strengthened us.
I look forward to seeing, you know, in a year or 18 months, you know, some of that success come to fruition as whānau find new ways of being able to navigate in this new world.
We just need to be very aware that the world has changed and that we are going to live in a society now where we may have ongoing pandemics that are going to be as contagious as COVID. So we have to be far more prepared in terms of our response to the likes of pandemics.
We owned that pandemic, man. We squashed it.
The main purpose of the documentary was really to showcase what things had occurred during the lockdown period, being able to show a perspective from whānau, what their experience had been and the opportunity to learn from that, and also then how had the connectedness between iwi and Māori helped the way that we had done things. Being connected, being unified and united in the approach towards responding to our hapori, whānau hapu and iwi, showing visible leadership and decision making that was in the best interests, responding in an agile manner, so quick to stand up, quick to respond, no layers of bureaucracy or barriers created by long drawn-out decision-making, and a coordinated approach that was one about our whole rohi, but at the same time was also about iwi and Māori in their own parts of the rohi. Putting people, putting whānau first, everyone was committed to that kaupapa. And mostly, of course, we are invested in the continuance of whakapapa, which requires us to therefore respond in the way that we did to a pandemic. We definitely had our own solutions and we took the lead on those. We didn't wait for anybody to tell us what to do or how to do it. And that's definitely something that needs to continue. The Iwi and Māori network, and standing up really quickly, put forward their own resources, whatever they were, whether that had been people from their own workforce, pūtea that they may have had available, or other resources. They put that in very quickly to share it. For us going forward as iwi and Māori, we want to see change and we want to see our solutions being put forward. We want to see our leadership move to the front of the process. We want to see a different way for contracting and or commissioning that is focused on outcomes for our communities. We want to be a part of the conversation before decisions are made. We no longer want any kind of master-servant relationship. We want true recognition of te tiriti and how that applies between Crown and iwi and Māori relationships. And we want a proactive and a privileged approach to improving outcomes for Māori.